And joining us now from Austin, Texas, is Roque Planas. He is a reporter with the Huffington Post who covers immigration. Thank you for joining us, Roque. We appreciate your time. So, do you think the Trump administration will be able to reunite all of these migrant children with their parents?
Yeah, thanks for having me. That remains to be seen. Right now, one of the disturbing aspects about this policy is that it was apparently created without any plan to reunite the mothers with their children. A government attorney was in court on a telephonic status conference on Friday acknowledging that they still don't have a plan, nor do they have channels of communication sufficient between the kids in the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the parents who face criminal charges and then get put in the immigrant detention system, where they do not necessarily have a right to a publicly funded lawyer. We know that some parents have already been deported without their kids, and I think a lot of people are concerned that that is going to continue to happen unless a court or some other entity actually orders the Trump administration to come up with a plan and put it on the table.
And you know, Roque, you've been covering this so closely and certainly have a lot of insight into this issue. And there is so much confusion about what exactly is taking place and what exactly is happening. So maybe we can get you to explain what happens to the parents when they're apprehended and how they end up so far away from their children in some of these cases.
Absolutely. So one thing to understand is that we actually have two separate immigration systems in our country. We have the civil system, where if you are caught up in that, right, that would be Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Those are the ones that are in charge of deportation, right? Then we also have a criminal system, because crossing the border illegally is technically a crime, though historically it was not enforced all that much until around 2005. So what the Trump administration has done is to say, we are now going to prosecute everyone, or as close to everyone as we can, that they catch crossing between the ports of entry or crossing the border illegally, right? And then what that does, if you are a family traveling together, it essentially makes it under the US law as if the child had arrived by themselves. So they are routed into the civil system, into the care of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. They might be sent to a sponsor or to a shelter. Meanwhile, the parents go to get prosecuted on criminal charges, and then they're sent to an immigrant detention center. You can see that we're talking about multiple agencies and multiple different systems, and there's no established pattern of communication between them. That's part of the reason why this is so complicated.
Absolutely, and it's so unnerving too for these children. So perhaps you can also give us a little bit more information on how young are some of these children and what is being told to them about whether or not they're going to see their parents again, if they are in fact transferred to foster care, for example. What do they know of what has happened to their parents? Do they get to touch base with their guardian after being put in this, as you call, different system altogether?
Well, what we know about the ages is they come any age from infants all the way up until age 17. Which would put them in the category of minors. Certainly, we've seen the Border Patrol take special precautions for children that they call tender age, which would be children under 5, but even them have been, in some cases, separated. Now, I don't have much direct knowledge about what the children are actually being told, but certainly some reports are showing that children might be told, or the mother might be told, that they're going to go take a bath, and then the child is taken from them and they don't see them again. And like I said, there's an ongoing problem with communications between the Office of Refugee Resettlement, where they're held, and their parents. There is no established system of communication. So, you know, in the lawsuit that was filed by the ACLU, what they were alleging is that the child in the lead case was sent more than 1,000 miles away from San Diego to Chicago, and the mother only got to speak with the child a few times, maybe a handful of times over a period of several months.
And it's just so troubling to hear that. And of course, this is detailed in a lawsuit, so these are allegations. But in terms of a little bit more clarity, too, on the situation, how it's unfolding, we know that this executive order has been signed by Donald Trump in order to prevent this from happening going forward, at least in the short term. But already, the separation has occurred with so many migrants who were crossing the border in the past few months. So in terms of the children and parents who've already been separated and the reunification, How does that work? What needs to happen in order to make sure that these children and parents are finding each other again?
The bureaucracies need to come together and create a system of communication and tracking so that they can reunite them. The ACLU was in court, as I was mentioning before, on Friday, demanding that the government come up with a plan to reunite the kids within 30 days, and in the case of kids younger than 5, within 10 days. But again, Trump signed this order with tremendous latitude to continue to separate families if he felt that it was warranted. And then there was a large amount of bureaucratic confusion about whether or not to continue prosecuting the parents in light of the executive order. Disagreements between the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice, between people who favor the policy and those who don't. So again, I don't really see in the short term how we get a specific plan unless the government comes out and tells us what it is, absent a court order.
And just very finally, Roque, I wanted to ask you, as someone, again, who is watching this situation so closely, what are the lasting questions that you have as you look forward on this issue that you feel are still unanswered? What are you looking for answers to?
Well, I think, beyond the suffering of the children and the suffering of the parents, which I think has received quite a large response from our reporters and an overwhelming public opinion in their favor, I think it still remains to be seen what this system is going to look like after the executive order. What it mandates is substituting family separation for a massive expansion of family detention, which was already a very controversial and extremely expensive system. The government put out a request for information. Immigration and Customs Enforcement put out a request for information to create 15,000 extra beds for family detention in our country. We currently only have a capacity of 3,000. There's court orders limiting how you detain families. Nothing that's in the executive order right now is workable, and the cost, if they were to make it workable, would be extreme. I mean, billions and billions of dollars. So right now, I think it's anyone's guess as to how this is actually going to look a month from now, a few days from now, but obviously we'll be following the story.
Well, Roque, thank you so much for your insight on this issue. That is Roque Planas. He is a reporter with the Huffington Post, and he joined us from Austin, Texas.